Howdy ho, guys and gals. Today I'm going to give you the full history of a brand that changed the way we work, a brand whose name became synonymous with an entire line of tools, and that brand, of course, is Skil. Now, Skil was founded way back in, I think it was 1924. It was by a gentleman named Edmund Mitchell. He was an immigrant from France who had moved to Louisiana, and while living in New Orleans, he noticed that there was a lot of manual labor involved in harvesting sugarcane, of all things. He thought there simply had to be a better way, and he got his hands on one of the machetes that they use, and he added a small 2-inch blade and a worm gear, and he called this the mechanical reaper. There was one large problem with his invention. It needed an external power generator, which made it completely unfeasible for use in the fields. So, being the inventor that he is, he didn't give up, and he tried again, ditching the machete and building a custom frame this time, using the same mechanism as he'd used before, but now he added a 6-inch blade for it. This was essentially the first electrical circular saw. A New Orleans newspaper ran an article about this invention, and it caught the eye of Joseph Sullivan, a Minneapolis land developer. And Sullivan convinced Mitchell that, hey, let's become business partners, but that one condition, he had to move the business to Chicago. Now, at the time, Chicago was about 50 years after the Great Chicago Fire. They'd completely rebuilt, and that because of that, they've been able to build it up new and fresh and in a better way, especially that allowed access to the Great Lakes. And Chicago at the time had become a hub for in the entire Midwest for all of the railroads, and they were building a canal to access the Mississippi. This became the center of production for decades to come. Now, they were granted a patent for the Mitchell electric handsaw. As tradesmen took one look at this tool, and they immediately could see how this would benefit them. There's a story that he took it to the boardwalk in Atlanta, did a demo, and somebody bought the first one there on site. As I said, it's a rumor. I wasn't able to verify it, but it sounds like a good story. Anyway, in 1926, the name was changed to Skil after Sullivan's wife commented on the skill necessary to use one of these. Later that year, Mitchell decided to cash out of the company in order to focus on other inventions. Unfortunately, none of his other inventions ever panned out, and as such, he went down in history as probably one of the least known yet most influential inventors of the 1900s. By the end of the year, the company had sold over 2,000 units and had officially incorporated as Skilsaw. Now, in 1928, die-cast aluminum was all the rage. It was taking the industry by a storm, and Skil was one of the first early adopters of this process. The aluminum castings made the tools lighter, made them sturdier. The first electric circ saw, the Model E, was developed in 1928. And you can see at that point, we're seeing basically the first real prototype that you would look at and be like, yep, that's a circular saw. In 1933, the inaugural edition of Industrial Equipment News, that must be a riveting publication. Anyway, Skilsaw introduced their new lightweight model, the Model W. That looks way more portable. Anyway, they said it was a portable saw, labeling it as suitable for maintenance and shipping department activities as well as production work. As Skil grew in popularity, Sullivan began to expand the company's product line. In 1934, Skil introduced its first non-saw tool, a portable electric drill, essentially their version of the popular Milwaukee hole shooter that had been invented a few years prior. Their use of updated production, though, and techniques, like the use of aluminum, allowed it to be lighter and smaller, and it quickly became a contender in the market. In 1936, while the U.S. was still trying to dig its way out of the Great Depression, Skil did something that no one else saw coming. They implemented an insurance and pension program for its employees. Considered a very progressive program at the time, as jobs were still scarce and most companies didn't provide their employees with any extra benefits, the plan did pay real dividends to the company when the U.S. began to dig its way out of the Great Depression, as they were able to keep many of their highly skilled workforce. In 1937, Skil introduced the Model 77 Skilsaw, which became the industry standard for handheld circular saws. The Model 77 is known for its durability, reliability, and I still see people using this saw today. In fact, you can still buy an updated version of the saw, which other than like new processes for the components like plastic handles, it's essentially the same saw. Now, in 1940s, the war effort was on, and Skil wasn't going to be left out. This is a rare find here. This is the PS-12. It was originally painted in camouflage colors, developed for military use during the war. The saw was converted to pneumatic power because it was used for in-water use. It was kept in a watertight box. It allegedly could be thrown overboard, floated in, and used to cut down piers. I don't know if it ever actually did that, but it's interesting to think of, not SEAL teams, but, whatever were the underwater demolition teams, I think they were called back then, swimming in it and taking down enemy piers with a saw like that. Anyway, following World War II, there was a huge explosion in the concept of DIY. 40s and 50s, Skil continued to extend its product line, going far beyond the Skilsaw line. They added electric screwdrivers and impact wrenches, electric drills, hammers, grinders, hedge trimmers, a whole sort of accessory. So it wasn't a lot of bench tools to appeal to that DIY market. So they kind of split in two, going with a DIY market and the professional market at the same time. Now, in 1952, the company's name was changed from Skilsaw to Skil Corporation to reflect the fact that it was no longer just saws. The name Skilsaw, though, was kept as a registered trademark for the company and continues on to this day. In 1961, Skil expanded to Europe. They were having a lot of stuff import or exported anyway. They're like, we might as well get on this. Anyway, they founded their headquarters in Breda, Netherlands. Don't know pronunciation there. Offering their professional DIY lines throughout all of Europe. They quickly expanded to offices across the continent. In 1966, Bolton Sullivan, the son of the co-founder Joseph Sullivan, he visited the offices in Breda to celebrate their 10 millionth tool sold. That's a pretty big accomplishment. Anyway, in 1979, Emerson Electric acquires Skil for $58 million. Emerson Electric is probably best known today for owning the Rigid brand, but they're more of an electronics company. They don't actually do any of the production for tools. Even to this day, they don't produce the Rigid brand that's sent out to TTI. Now, in the later half of '79, they redesigned many of their tools to have heavy-duty plastic housings, double-insulated housings, and such like that. Skil's always been one of the early adopters for new production techniques. Now, in 1982, the company launched another program, again investing in newer manufacturing techniques and, better yet, quality control processes, and they introduced the heavy-duty and super-duty line of tools. They renamed Skil Skilsaw and Skil Professional. In fact, I still keep a drill like this one in my shop for any of the, the heavy lifting kind of stuff that I may need. As I say, corded is really underrated, especially when it comes to runtime. In the late 80s, Skil launched a line of DIY cordless tools that were a huge hit with the company, or at least with the consumer, and was a big hit for the company as well. Unfortunately, it did tend to make the image for the company go away from, and Black & Decker had the same problem, that people started to see the company less as a professional line of tools and more as a DIY, an inexpensive line of tools. In 1991, and I guess this is what probably led up to it, 1991, Emerson Electric and Robert Bosch, they entered into a joint venture combining their, makes me think of Power Rangers, combining their Power Tools subsidiaries, forming SB Power Tool Co. But that didn't last very long. In 1996, Bosch said, okay, enough of this, and they just bought out the rest of it and became the full owners. And yes, that is what Bosch headquarters look like. And yes, I do have a compulsion to fix it. In August of 2016, Bosch sold, and this one kind of befuddled us all, but they sold the entire Skil brand to Shirvan, based out of Nanjing, China. They bought the entire brand, the tool division, which gave them control over the Skil business in North America and in the European markets. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Shirvan, I don't blame you, but if you've been around the channel, you probably know who they are. They made their name with the outdoor power equipment brand Ego, and they basically conquered the homeowner outdoor power equipment market. They became, as I call them, the Cadillac of outdoor power equipment when it comes to DIYers. They also own Flex. They now own Skil. Then they have Devon and Extron. Those are brands that you don't really see in the States. But Ego really taught them about making batteries and stuff like that. They've been making tools for other companies for years, but at this point, when they bought Skil, they really wanted to branch out on their own and become their own entity. If you want more information on who they are, I did a video on Flex when Flex launched, which does a whole background on who Shervan is. I'll put a link to it down below if you want to find out more about them. Today, Skil still has an extensive line of worm drive saws. They're known as other people do make them, but they're known as the king of the worm drive saw. And they make a fabulous line of both corded and cordless worm drive saws. In fact, they've even expanded into other features. They've got the carpentry chainsaw, they've got a concrete saw, the walk behind concrete saw, and other things. They've put this technology into table saws, compact table saws, as well as a couple of miter saws, I believe. Now, they've expanded with the cordless line well into just a ton of tools. They've got the Power Core 20, which has brushed and brushless tools, and it has regular handheld kind of power tools, as well as outdoor power equipment. Then they've got the 12-volt line, which if you've been around the channel, you know I'm a huge fan of. I have probably most of those tools at this point. The entire 12-volt line is all brushless. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's as good as like a Milwaukee or a Bosch or a Makita, but for the average homeowner, this is comparable or better to what they were putting out when they kind of made their name in the homeowner market, and it is a fabulous set of tools. I'd suggest you keep your eye out for them. That said, they also have the table saw now for this DIY level. It's a great option, the DIY table saws. They've got a dual battery rear handle Skil line, so in the prosumer kind of market. And they also have a 40-volt line for outdoor power equipment, which I think if you're going to do anything larger than your basic yard, that is definitely, you want to step up to at least 40-volt, or if not higher, go to the 56-volt ones over in the Ego line. That said, Skil is a very interesting company. They've been around. Next year, it'll be 100 years. And it's unfortunate that the inventor, Michael, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's unfortunate that he didn't, or doesn't still today, get the kind of recognition that he deserves for coming up with such an innovative product. But I think we're all happy that he did, because trying to do any kind of woodworking without a circ saw, or as back in my day, we all called them a Skilsaw, it would be hard to do. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this history. If there's other companies out there that you would like to see us do a history, put it down in the comments below. I read all the comments. If you've got any other video suggestions, feel free to put them down there as well. While you're down there, take a second and chomp the old like button, smash the subscribe, ring the bell on your way out. You all take care, God bless, and as always, shine on.